Mi nombre es Norberto Gonzalez. Yo nací en Havana, Cuba. Yo estoy muy orgulloso de ser a United States Marine. Growing up in Cuba, it wasn't easy. It was very hard. It wasn't a lot of food, a lot of clothes, a lot of freedom. You can't say whatever you want to say. So when I was 18 years old, I decided to leave that place. I'd rather be eaten by a shark than die in Cuba. You understand that?
In a lot of ways, Castro manufactures these immigration crises because it suits his needs. He's diabolical, but he's not dumb. And he sees the advantage of allowing people to leave.
I have to leave. There's no other way.
So life is pretty rough. Politically, there's a significant difference between what their Constitution guarantees them in terms of rights and freedoms and what they actually receive.
The government controls everything. You cannot say whatever you want to say. You cannot express your feelings. You have to love Fidel Castro. You got to obey Fidel Castro. And if you don't do that, the police, they can beat you up. They can take you someplace, asking you questions and drill you till you break down or something like that, you know?
Of course, the Constitution says they have freedom of speech, freedom of religion. In reality, they have no such freedoms.
And freedom is no freedom whatsoever, you know?
And so life there, it continues to be one of grinding poverty and political oppression.
It's a big prison. That's what Cuba is, you know? So I decided to live, you know, so. Everything the government told me in Cuba was a lie. You get so angry, so mad inside that you just want to yell and scream, you know what I mean? But you cannot do that. You have to be quiet. You have to hold it inside you, you know what I'm saying? It's a lie. It was a lie. You live a lie, you know, and I got sick and tired out of it. Something snapped inside of me and said, you know what? You need to know the truth.
So there is political oppression. There's also no economic opportunity. People want a better life, and they want a better life for their children.
It brings me back memories, you know, how really bad it was.
According to the U.S. State Department, the average Cuban earns about $17 a month.
Me and my friend trying to escape one time, and we got caught, you know. We were scared that we was gonna go to prison, so we say we have to leave for sure this place, you know what I'm saying?
Because you don't actually have to be accused of any crime in order to end up in jail.
We didn't want to take a chance, you know?
And once you are in jail, the government has no obligation to give you a trial, even to state what evidence they have against you.
Say, you know what, I'm leaving this country because I don't have any freedom. You know, and I want to be free, you know, to say whatever I want to say, go whatever I want to go.
And when things get bad enough, they'll be willing to get on board a raft that they made themselves and take their chances.
You know, so what we did, we built a raft. We built a raft out of inner tubes, some pieces of wood, styrofoam, and a tarp, you know. We were in the ocean for 3 days, and we saw a big ship, you know, in the middle of the night. The ship picked us up. They were the Navy, and we are very happy. We were like, we're going to America. We're good. We came into a port like 2 or 3 days later, and we say, yeah, we're in America. But a person on the microphone tells us, you are in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba.
The Platt Amendment gave the United States the right to intervene in Cuban politics. It's also the source of the Guantanamo Bay situation.
And we are like really disappointed. We are like, I cannot believe this. But one thing was, we were in American territory.
Guantanamo Bay is actually part of the United States. It's controlled by the United States, even though it's on Cuba.
So even though we didn't know what's gonna happen to us, we know. We were an American ship and we were in American territory. That was enough to say, it's okay. We will be okay.
Castro uses the United States as a safety valve for his society. 1994, Castro desperately needed people to leave. He needed the people who were protesting against him to go away. The United States government then had to deal with this influx, and they also had to deal with the media on this, because about 20% of the people who were leaving were dying at sea.
The ocean got a little rough, a little rough. You can feel the raft moving pretty good, you know what I'm saying? So the food got all mixed up with salt water, and we had to throw it away.
But the U.S. government was under significant pressure to allow them to come to the United States. They tried a stopgap measure, and that was to take them all to Guantanamo Bay.
We was living in a tent. We got barbed wires all over around us, It wasn't easy, It wasn't easy, but it was better than being in Cuba. The reason I think that they kept us in Guantanamo Bay for so long is because back in 1980, Castro shipped a lot of criminals, a lot of mentally ill person, he trying to clean up his prison, you know what I'm saying? And now I believe the government of the United States didn't want that to happen again, So we were there for that long, going through immigration, making sure everything was good so we can come to America. The whole entire time I was there, I was thinking, it's a purpose why we're here. We have to go through immigration. They want to make sure that the people who get there are good people. You know what I'm saying? Good. That we're gonna do good in America, Do you understand what I'm saying? There were 30,000 people in there, in different camps,
If communism is so great, why don't we see Americans building rafts in Key West and trying to span that same 90-mile waterway to get to Cuba?
Yeah, some people kind of lost their mind, for the time, the being there, we didn't have a lot of stuff to do. Yeah, people did some things to themselves, to hurt themselves, because they thought if they hurt themselves, they could have come to America sooner. But it wasn't like that, so yeah, that's what happened, When we heard that the president claimed to sign the bill that we can come to America, that was a very exciting moment. To me, it was the best moment of my life. That was a relief, this was like, yes, our dreams come true, When I got to America, I was very excited, but at the same time, I didn't know much about it, I didn't know what to expect, So I told myself, I need to get to know these people. I need to get to know the language. I need to get to know the customs. I want to know what America is all about.
Cuban Americans are the only Hispanic group that tend to vote Republican. They also tend to vote in very large numbers and have a strong understanding of the system of lobbying the U.S. government.
I have the right to go and vote for the president. I've never done that in my life. In Cuba, you can do that.
And so they have been able to exert a certain influence, significantly more than the percentage of their population.
You can't vote for the president, You can't vote for who is going to represent you, you know what I'm saying? And you can do it here in this country. And I was excited about that. Very excited, The reason I like to pay my taxes in this country is because we have the emergency service, the garbage, it's so many things that we pay with our taxes that I don't mind it at all to do it. You know, in Cuba, yeah, you don't pay taxes, it's true, but you know what, guess what? It's garbage everywhere. You know, the police, you can't just call the police and say, hey, come to my house, I got a problem. Yeah, right there, right away. You know, an ambulance, the same thing, you know? In Cuba, it's not like that. I mean, it's terrible, it's horrible, you know, so you don't see that in this country. That's why I love them so much, you know? You can do whatever you want here in this country. As long as you got a job, as long as you do what you're supposed to be doing, you're fine, you're free. And that's what it's all about, freedom. Freedom and democracy, you know? My family's free, my kids are free. Freedom is everything. I didn't have that growing up, and I want you two guys to have that. That's how I feel. I feel that this is the greatest country in the world. I hear about the Twin Towers, you know, and that really makes me really angry, because I thought to myself, somebody wants to take that freedom away from us. It's not happening, you know, not in my watch. So I decided to enjoy the Navy Reserve, and after that, I enjoyed the Marine Corps, you know, and I was very excited, you know. Living in a communist country, you realize what freedom is all about, and you want to defend that at all costs. And nobody was gonna take my freedom away, the American people freedom, plus my family. I want to defend that freedom for them and for other people too. My name is Norberto Gonzalez. I was born in Havana, Cuba, and I am an American. I became a citizen of the United States, and I decided that I want to enjoy the Marine Corps. You know, I want to give something back to this country. So, to be honest to you, going through boot camp was exciting. It was great, you know, and putting that uniform and thinking I'm doing something for my country is the best feeling ever. That's how I feel.